you're saying that if you have a negative reaction, that means it's working?
Well, it's a...
Yes, in a way. Yes, in a way. It is a detox reaction, and naturopaths and homeopaths and many other natural healing doctors, they're all familiar with this reaction very well. The important thing with the child, to keep this reaction under control. That's why you introduce the probiotic gradually, starting from tiny amounts, to keep it under control. And the dose process can be very individual. In some children it goes quite quickly, in other children much, much slower, particularly children where there's epilepsy as well as autism. A lot of autistic children have got epilepsy. And what epilepsy is in these children, and actually 99% of juvenile epilepsy in young children, it is toxicity. When the level of toxins builds up in the brain and it's too high, the brain just sends one electric discharge to destroy them in one go. So it is a cleansing process for the brain, the epileptic fit. So these children have developed that way of cleaning their brain, because after an epileptic fit, they're much clearer, these children, and they're much more able, and they're much more communicative and everything else. So it's the toxicity that causes this sort of symptoms. So if the child has got epilepsy, then we have to increase the dose of probiotic very, very slowly, not to trigger the epileptic fit. And the same with the detox. If you introduce juicing, for example, which I recommend as the main chelation and detoxification tool. I do not support chelation, I do not support drug approach in young children. I believe that children should be healed with food, with natural approaches. Juicing is a time-proven, wonderful method of removing all sorts of toxins from the body, including the mercury and other heavy metals. So introducing juicing into this sort of children's regimen, you have to start from tiny amounts and build up gradually, not to cause a severe detox reaction.
Good. Now, if a parent says, oh, this just isn't working, and you see that the parent's handing their child a Coca-Cola and fries as, you know, after they have their kefir, I mean, what would you say to, I mean, what do parents need to understand about, comprehensively, about what they're trying to do?
For one thing, one of the most important functions of the gut flora is to allow us to eat sugar. And we have sugar in nature. Their fruits and vegetables have sugars, and these sugars feed the gut flora. So once you establish the inner ecosystem, you can actually enjoy sugars in natural foods like fruits and vegetables. If somebody's going to have a Coke, let's say, they would be much better, they would be damaged far less by that Coke if they were also having something like the uncoconut kefir, the fermented vegetables, these fermented beverages that we recommend. If they're also drinking those throughout the day and they end up having a cupcake or a Coke or something, they won't react in the same way. Children are reacting to sugar right now. First of all, they're craving sugar. We crave the sweet taste in this country. We crave salty foods. And we don't have sour foods. Fermented foods are sour. But when you start to eat them, you actually lose your taste and desire for sweet things. You lose your desire for sugar. So one of the things we consistently are told with our young coconut kefir drink is in about 4 or 5 days, people just don't want sugar anymore. So that's a great thing, because, you know, where do you start? With us, we say if you just do one thing, start with the young coconut kefir, because your child's not cooperating. That's because he's deficient in zinc, and he can't really, and in many ways can't even taste the sweetness in a fruit or the sweetness in a carrot. But put him on sour fruit, like the young coconut kefir is sour. Even though you can make it sweet tasting by putting stevia and some fruit juice in it, it's still the sour, the fermented foods go into the body, and the body gives up its desire for sugar. Now this child, in a few weeks, is eating broccoli and things he wasn't drawn to at all. So I think that the fermented foods are actually almost like a prophylactic to, I mean, if you're going to eat anything sweet, you've got to have the microflora there, or it's not safe to eat foods with sugar.
So you don't have a period of time where you say avoid the sugar?
We do, actually, because I started in this work first, of course, for many years working with adults with systemic fungal infections. I know the children have systemic fungal infections they've picked up from their mother. The mothers have the fungal infections anyway, the yeast infections. They don't know they have the infections. The mothers having babies today are the daughters of the baby boomers. And the baby boomers were introduced to antibiotics more in their teen years, but by the time we had our children were literally raised on antibiotics, and now these are the young women giving birth to babies today. So the antibiotics created a systemic fungal infection, and the children pick up that infection and they come into the world with a fungal infection. So the diet that we have, one of the reasons it's so effective, is there isn't any sugar in it. You know, we've eliminated sugar in a lot of different forms initially to bring the yeast under control, while we're at the same time beginning to build the gut flora. So your digestion improves, the microflora are doing so many things. They're manufacturing B vitamins, they're making sure that we extract minerals from the food, retain minerals. Then we build mineral-rich blood. The blood comes through the intestines, picks up the minerals, carries them out into the cells. As the blood becomes more mineral-rich, and the pH, you know, you don't want blood that's slightly acidic. You want blood that's slightly alkaline. And because when it becomes too acidic, the yeast and viruses and so on can grow in that blood. So by this ability to get minerals into the blood and into the cells is very critical. So we're working on all of this in the very beginning of the diet. And the yeast infection, the body starts to get it under control. And then in the meantime, we're beginning to build the energy in the body. We're building the adrenals and the thyroid, where everything that the person is now eating, the fats they're eating, which we have a wonderful, our belief about fats is that there are certain fats that are excellent for you and you need them all. On the Body Culture Diet, we have olive oil and coconut oil, and the Russians have pine nut oil that they give to their children that has a beautiful fatty acid profile that's excellent for autism and hasn't been introduced into the autism community. But we love pine nut oil, pumpkin seed oil. We like raw butter because the raw butter helps heal the mucosal, the gut lining, and allows the bacteria to nestle in and stay there so that they'll colonize.